Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This week we're in chapter 16, the beginning of the end. We see the fall of the northern kingdom, the fall of Israel. Reminds me of a story about George Washington. When he was a young man, he was offered the highest level position for this new colony. He was offered to become king of this new group of Americans, and he turned it down. Being a man of great faith, of great prayer, he realized that they needed more of a more collaborative effort. They needed a new experiment if they were going to build a new nation, and so he turned it down. We don't know exactly what he said in his rejection, but I wonder if he said something like, I have no king but King God. What a great motto. It was certainly a motto that the colonists rallied around, and I got to thinking about the chapter that we're in right now and thought about the fact that the nation of Israel really needed a motto like that. No king but King God. And what a great motto it would be for us if we lived and followed that kind of a creed. I believe there would probably be about 4 repercussions for us if we followed the creed, no king but King God. The first one would be this. It would be the key to godly faithfulness and cultural relevance. If we are going to remain faithful, we need to realize that everything we have comes from our King, and that is King God. His love comes streaming down on us. And it seems, as we have studied in the Old Testament the last few weeks, that when the kings, their leadership teams, their families, and their nation followed the lead of their King, King God, things went great. They went swimmingly for them. When they didn't, they began to spin out of control in their own lives, within the scope of their family and within the scope of their nation. And so it would be impossible for them to be culturally relevant if they didn't remember their God, their King that was truly God. So I think that's the same kind of a repercussion that we would have in today's world if we were going to follow the creed, no king but King God. A second repercussion that we would have is that we would need to live by the code. I really love the phrase, living by the code. See, God had given us just a few weeks ago, we saw Moses go up on the mountain, and God spoke to his spokesman, Moses, the leader of his people, and he gave him 2 tablets. On those tablets contained the code. You and I know them as the 10 Commandments. Everybody has a code. Even pirates have a code. But I would suggest to you today that we need to learn to live by the code. Not because God is an old fuddy-duddy in the sky, doesn't want us to have any fun, but because when he sent his son, he promised to give us abundant life. A life that was full of life. And if we would simply live by the code, we would continue to remember him as our King God. A third repercussion, if we're going to make and live by the motto, no king but King God, is that we would need to remember that God himself is the launch pad for our effectiveness. I showed a slide in our PowerPoint presentation of Launchpad 39A down at the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral, Florida. And of course, Launchpad 39A is a very famous launch pad. Many rockets, Gemini, Apollo, Mercury, the shuttles have launched from that launch pad. And I got to thinking about God is our launch pad. As we get up in the morning and head to work or head to school or head to the gym or wherever we go, God has prepared us for the day. We have his rocket fuel that comes from his word. And we are able to just launch into our day, launch into our week, launch into our community for him. Are we effectively using him as our launch pad? And of course, the fourth repercussion, if we're going to live by the motto, no king but King God, is that we need to realize that God would be our source for resisting evil. If you were to take a homiletic class and learn how to preach, no doubt if you took an old school class, one of the old time professors would take you to James chapter 4:7, where it says, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And if he asked you what are the 3 points, you would say, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. What a great way to resist the devil. We need to realize that that's what we need to do every day in our lives. We need to submit to God. We need to resist the evil one. And we know that when we do that, he will flee from us. Those 4 repercussions would definitely be in play if we're going to live a life in accordance to the motto, no king but King God. So what are the takeaways this week? Quickly, there are these. We need to be aware of times of prosperity. We see the nation of Israel, every time things are going good, they couldn't handle the prosperity, and they spun out of control, turned their backs on God, and had nothing but tragedy to look forward to. Number two, we need to beware when we fall into times of drift. A friend of mine used to say they're the doldrums. We're not in the trade winds going in a positive direction. We're not pulling backwards or anything like that. We're just spinning and we're going nowhere. We need to beware when we're in times like that and to seek God and His Word to get us out of that and back into the trade winds. And the third and final takeaway this week is, how about if we just made God not only our God, but to do what He said, to give glory to His Son and make Jesus our King. I believe if we do those things, we will not fall off the path or off the right track, and we will constantly be making progress towards God by making God our King.